There's a bunch of crazy stories written by the Brothers Grimm. And now you're gonna learn all about them, listening to the Brothers Grimm.
Students and scholars, friends and relations, welcome to the Brothers Grimm podcast, where we consider the stories collected and written down by the Brothers Grimm in the early 1800s in Germany, including this week's story, one of the truly ingenious, inventive, popular stories of all time, story number 53, Little Snow White. My name is Phil.
And my name is Mike.
Mike, how are you?
I'm doing all right tonight. How about yourself?
I'm doing great.
Excellent.
But we have a lot to get through, so I'm not going to go into too much of a story.
That is true. There's a lot to this one.
Yeah. Before we get into it, though, I have a grade. Do you have a grade?
You know, I couldn't settle on something. I didn't.
Okay.
I don't love it. I don't dislove it. It's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of in the B, but I can definitely I can definitely hear other opinions. What do you think?
Oh, I thought S tier.
Really?
Yeah. It doesn't always happen with me with Grimm stories that become hugely popular afterwards, but I really liked it. I thought it was so creative and imaginative. And you have to kind of go back too. Because it's of its time, but this wasn't like something that had been around for 1,000 years either. And it reads like it too. It's very unique.
Yeah.
It's like 8 pages, which is
That's
a lifetime.
That's
for
a
Grimm.
long Grimm story. Yeah.
Yeah. But even with the repetitious poems and things, the economy of words is still pretty tremendous, I think. So
yeah. I mean, there's no downtime.
I really liked it. It reminded me a lot of Hansel and Gretel with just how much unique elements this had.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have never particularly liked the story, at least the Disney side of things in general.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you see if in retelling you can sway me a little?
Okay. I will take us through story number 53, Little Snow White. Once upon a time, in the middle of winter, a queen sat sewing near a window. It was snowing and the window frame was black ebony. Queen pricked her finger, saw the blood, wishes for a child as white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as the wood of the window frame. So then she gets pregnant, dies in childbirth, but the baby's doing fine. After a year, the husband remarries, and that's the last we hear of him. He remarries. He marries a haughty and vain woman who didn't like anyone being prettier than her. And this lady has a, quote, wonderful, unquote, looking glass. She'd stand in front of it and she would say, looking glass on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all? The mirror says back, you are. It says a little poem, but you. But eventually the little girl turns 7. I'm going to leave that the fuck there for a minute. The mirror starts talking about how Snow White's hotter than you are. She's prettier than you are. So stepmom starts getting more and more upset about this until at some point she can't stand it no more. Gets a hunter to take Snow White into the woods and kill her and bring back the heart. While they're out in the woods, though, Snow White begs the guy not to kill her. She says, look, I'll just run away. No harm, no foul. You won't see me again. Hunter takes pity on the kid and says, you know what? Okay, run off, you little scamp. Hunter kills a boar, cuts the heart out, brings that to the queen's stepmom, who eats it. But now Snow White is out in the woods. Eventually, she comes across a little cottage. Goes inside and sees everything is very small. There's 7 little place settings, 7 little beds, 7 little mugs of wine. She's hungry and tired, so she takes a little bit of food from each plate, a little bit of wine, and eventually hops into one of the beds and knocks out. Well, along come the homeowners, and lo, it's the 7 dwarfs. Nameless, but there they are. And they find the girl, but they let her sleep. Next morning, she wakes up surrounded by the dwarfs. They all chat a bit. She's scared at first, but they're nice. They say, "Oh, what you doing?" She's like, well, here's what happened. Here's why I'm here. So they make her a deal. They say, okay, well, we're miners. As in we go into the ground for precious metal, not like a miner that like she's a miner. Who's presumably older than 7 at this juncture, but who knows?
Hi-oh.
Yeah. The deal is if she takes care of the house, she can stay, clean up. We'll feed you. You'll have your own bed. Won't that be fun? But that queen's going to figure this shit out. So if she comes a knocking, you don't let her in. So they go out. Queen talks to the mirror, finds out Snow White is still alive, goes off to find her, disguises herself as a saleswoman, and knocks on the window, talks to Snow White into letting her in to sell her wares. This first time she's selling lace corsets. Snow White thinks they're very pretty, And the queen says, oh, let me put this on you. So puts it on her, laces her up so tight, though, that she can't breathe. Snow White passes out. The queen leaves. Dwarves come home. They see her on the floor and they unlace her, wake her up saying, oh, what happened? She's like, oh, I guess it was the queen. They're like, all right, well, try to be smarter.
Don't do that again.
Don't do that again. Don't let any ladies come in because it's going to be the queen. She's going to try to trick you. So, sure thing, guys. Next day, Queen talks to the mirror again. Oh, no, Snow White is still alive. So goes back this time selling combs. Snow White lets her in. But, the comb was poisoned. So Snow White puts the comb in her hair. She falls down looking dead. Queen leaves. Dwarfs come home. Remove the comb. Snow White wakes up. Dwarfs tell her to be more careful. And here's round 3. Queen mirror disguise, this time with a poison apple. Snow White at least is starting to learn. And to be fair, again, might be 7. So wait, are you sure you're not the queen? But the queen she was prepped for this. She's like, she only poisoned half the apple. So she said, no, I'll eat half the apple. And then that'll prove that the apple's fine. So Snow White's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. So she eats the poison half the apple, falls down dead, exit queen left. Dwarfs come home, they find her dead. But she's so pretty and such is their love for her that they build her an ornate glass coffin so they can look at her. And they can look at her dead body. And then, and other animals all come around. They kind of build a little pyre to her. But she doesn't seem to rot. So they just sort of keep her there. And they're like, we can't bury her. This is... Eventually, a prince wanders along, sees her, and is like, oh, neat. I must have that. The whole thing. I just want to look at... I want this as an objet d'art. Dwarfs say, okay, well, weird, but off you pop. Prince starts taking her back home. But one of his servants trips on a tree stump, drops the coffin, and when that happens, she kind of falls funny, and it's just like a Heimlich maneuver. So a piece of poison apple that was in her throat pops out, and she wakes up and looks around and is like, oh, where am I? And the prince now is thrilled. He's like, oh, you're with me. You're so hot, and I love you. And Snow White looks at him and is like, you know what?
You're right.
A handsome rich bachelor prince, you say. So she's down for marriage. They pop off back to his castle. Enter back the queen. She talks to the mirror for first time in a while. Oh no, Snow White's back alive. Well, that won't do. So she doesn't know what to do. She eventually goes and sees Queen Snow White. But everyone knows who the woman is, so they heat up some metal shoes on the fire, and when they're red hot, they stick them on the stepmom and make her dance until she dies. The end.
They left that part out
of Disney
in the movie.
Well, we can talk about Disney right now if you want, but there's a couple. I have some other things too. One thing I'd like to get into, just say real quick, if I may.
Yeah.
We don't usually just read the stories, but I found this one to be very poetic. And it's almost a shock how much it stands out. So it starts, once upon a time in the middle of winter, when the flakes of snow were falling like feathers from the sky.
Yeah.
Flowery language.
Yeah, I noticed the same thing. It's especially in the beginning there. It's set up very, very poetically.
I was quite delighted.
Did you have a first line that made you laugh?
No, we haven't done that in a little while. Tell me the line that made you laugh.
And when the child was born, the queen died. I was just like, oh, okay.
Well, it's your fault for eating juniper berries, lady. Now,
cross all these up.
Speaking of the juniper tree, I mean, a couple things: white as snow and red as blood.
Yes. Yep.
Damn near the same language as the juniper tree.
Yeah, definitely.
And mom died in childbirth.
While we're at this part,
okay,
I came across something that was about sort of the symbolism of the red blood and the white snow.
Okay.
Foreshadows what's to come with Snow White.
Okay.
As well as the black windowsill is akin to the wood of a coffin.
Oh,
I can kind of buy that.
That's interesting.
I don't know if it was intended, but it's an interesting look.
When I saw Queen pricks her finger and sees blood, and that's not the first time that this has happened, because that happened again in the juniper tree.
Right.
But she sees the blood, wishes for a baby, so like that I felt might be her period, right?
Oh.
Like she knows at that moment she's not pregnant.
Yeah.
She wants a babe. She sees the blood, she's like, well, it ain't not this month.
That analogy to, or the symbolism of menstruation there and it meaning not having a baby, I think there's definitely something there.
I didn't even think about it the first time, but the second time I was like all these women that just really want a baby. And I remember like I was trying to have my own child.
Mhm.
That was always, oh well, I had my period. It's like, no, okay, well,
Yeah.
all right. I guess we'll have to have more sex.
Right, but if you're trying and trying and trying, getting your period is definitely going to be a humbling reminder that it didn't work.
Or I mean, Jesus, the
Oh, a miscarriage.
a miscarriage
Yeah,
too.
is that where you're going?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can see that too.
something I thought was interesting too. The mirror, the looking glass. One read I thought of, which I thought was maybe kind of neat, was that that shit ain't magic. And maybe mom's just talking to herself.
Yeah, maybe it's just hallucination.
Yeah, auditory hallucinations.
Yeah.
She's a bit touched. Starts getting jealous of Snow White when she's fucking 7. And presumably it builds up. Like they say it's she keeps getting angrier and angrier about this, but maybe she at least gets to puberty, but I don't fucking know.
Yeah. I don't remember in the 1937 Disney movie what happens to the queen at the end. Obviously, they don't put burning hot shoes on her and make her dance until she dies.
No, the dwarfs come home just as she's poisoned Snow White, and they chase her, and they chase her to the up to a cliff, and then she falls off a cliff and a boulder falls on her.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, it's raining and there's thunder. It's they kind of re-reference it again in Beauty and the Beast. That's sort of like the falling off of the cliff thing, but
yeah. I read a version where the stepmother just chokes with rage and dies. It basically it gets right up to the wedding ceremony celebration thing, and then instead of the hot shoes, she just chokes with rage and dies, and they party on around her, which is another standard grim trope. Bad guy dies, so party around it.
Walt decided skip the poison comb and skip the lace corset, which was tied way too tight. I know why he did that, but I also find it funny.
Yeah.
But damn near beat for beat, other than that, barring 2 key differences. And one of the reasons why I thought this was S tier for me. This is a rare version where the prince does not actually sexually assault Snow White.
Yes, you're right.
Should be a low bar, but it's a bar that happens so fucking often in these stories. It might as well be 100-meter hurdles race. There's so many bars.
Yeah. On the heels of Sleeping Beauty, what was it, 3 stories? Yeah, that was 3 stories ago. Yeah.
He was just like, oh, she's so beautiful. I'll take care of her. No, I won't bury her. He doesn't go in for a kiss. He's not, I mean, maybe weird that he treats her like an object of art, but also it's a weird magical thing. And he's just, I don't know.
He does want a dead 7-year-old in a glass coffin as his dearest possession, or however old she is at that point.
Maybe she grew a little as this was going on. So
she had to have.
She's now 18. 11 years later, the dwarfs have been playing fucking thing in the woods of this dead friend of theirs. But interesting though, a little bit on the Disney side. I think that Walt Disney himself, or whoever's writing it, like thought about that, because the prince in the Disney film meets her before all of that happened.
Really?
He does, like, and he falls in love. They fall in love with each other. Like he sees her singing.
Huh.
Prince
It's been
Charming
too long since I've seen it.
It's good. You should rewatch it. And then I joke about like like the sexual assault. I shouldn't joke about sexual assault, but I don't think that's necessarily what he was doing. I think he saw someone that he loved in a coffin and kissed her goodbye, which then broke the spell, but he didn't know that. But I mean, I've seen that happen. I've seen people kiss dead people in coffins before. I don't know if you've ever been to a funeral.
I mean, you know what? I've never been to an open casket.
Okay.
But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't understand or like the idea of kissing dead people.
Yeah.
Coffins. Again, I've seen people do it, and if that gives them comfort, okay.
Kissing an open casket, I feel like if everybody else was doing it, I would do it, but I wouldn't really think about it and I wouldn't be freaked out about it. And then when I actually do, I realize that this person is room temperature, and that's what would totally freak me out.
Yeah, no, I don't. I've seen other people do it. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't begrudge anyone. We all handle grief differently.
Right.
That's your journey. I read something funny once.
What was that?
That in the Disney movie, from Snow White's perspective, the old woman who gave her the apple, totally cool lady, because she gave Snow White an apple, falls asleep, wakes up with literal Prince Charming, the guy she loved from before, looking over her, and then she goes off and marries him, which is very serendipitous, I think.
Huh, yeah. there were a couple lines that threw me.
Okay.
It's similar to what was the last one we did? Is Thrushbeard, where she was selling the earthenware as well because she was pretty. The hunter takes Snow White out into the forest, and she begs for her life, says, I'll just disappear." And the quote is, "And as she was so beautiful, the hunter had pity on her."
Yeah.
Like that's the only reason. It's not because it's a child begging for her life.
Yeah.
Well, if you were ugly, then maybe not. But
I've
go
killed
ahead.
a lot of ugly girls before.
Get on out of here.
Turns out it's easy. You're not very strong, but you're very pretty. You're a very pretty 7-year-old. So like, yeah, off you pop.
One thing I found was funny is, the dwarves come home and they find a 7-year-old girl, dirty, malnourished, and obviously terrified. In her cottage, she begs for asylum. Explains the whole situation. My stepmother tried to kill me. Blah blah blah. And they say, "All right, well, if you'll take care of our house, cook, make the beds, wash, sew, and knit, and if you'll keep everything neat and clean, you could stay with us, and you shall want for nothing." Well, what do we get out of it?
Well, a little bit though. I mean, like it's this person shows up, just want like they find her, they let her sleep first of all, and then they're just like,
Yeah.
well, you can stay. I mean, you have to earn your keep, but if you can stay here if you want.
Well, that's a lot of keep earning. And also,
I mean,
they mentioned that the cottage was neat as a pin already. So I mean, it's not like it was a dump that needed a woman's touch.
No, I don't think that's what they're saying. I think they work really hard all day in the mines, and they also keep the place clean. And they're like, well, maybe if you just clean up a little bit, and it's like having a housekeeper come once a week for 4 hours.
Well, then maybe my problem is the phrasing of the line: "If you will take care of our house, cook, make the beds, wash, sew, and knit, keep everything neat and clean."
Just you got to do everything.
Maybe it just felt a little extreme.
We'll let you stay until your 8th birthday, after which we'll kick you out. Do you have a moral?
Oh, I don't know. Persevere, be pretty.
For her, yeah. For the queen, I guess, or the original queen, the stepmom, don't let vanity take over your life, was what I thought.
Yeah, definitely.
And like don't get jealous of how hot a 10-year-old is or whatever. Yeah. 7 to start. And some variants of the story have Snow White kind of being kind. Like the Disney version, certainly Snow White just loves animals and is a very, very nice voice and things like that. Not in this one, really. She's just a little girl.
Yeah. Did you know in the first edition it's her mother that sends her away?
I didn't know that specifically about this one.
Yeah.
But I know that we've talked about that before.
Yeah. This is in Grimm's first edition. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we've talked about that where it seems like there was a bunch.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
A bunch of stories which originally had been the mom, and then they turned it into stepmom.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those. And then the father finds the glass coffin, and he revives her by having his doctors tie her arms and legs to the 4 corners of the room.
Well, this is the first one, the first edition.
Yeah,
one?
This is in the first edition one. Yeah, that's how she comes back. I don't think there's any prints at all.
It's just they fucking what's that? That's a torture device. What's that called? Hold on, the rack.
Yeah. I guess it dislodges the apple. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, it's one way to dislodge an apple. I guess it's dislodge your arms and legs from their sockets too.
I have a fun Disney fact, and this is the timing is weird because I don't know how I got on this, but I was recently down a little rabbit hole in Wikipedia. This was like 3 days ago.
Okay.
About a legendary voice artist, Mary Kay Bergman, who she grew up in the same neighborhood as the original voice of Snow White, Adriana Caselotti.
Okay.
She was the voice of Snow White in 1937. But by the time Mary Kay Bergman was growing up, this was, sort of an old lady living in her neighborhood, was still voicing Snow White. Mary Kay Bergman, as she grew up, she was inspired by Adriana Caselotti and became a voice artist herself. Wasn't getting a lot of gigs, but one day Adriana Caselotti wasn't available to do some Snow White lines, so Disney had Mary Kay Bergman come in. They really liked her, and she actually ended up inheriting the role in the early 90s, but it was a little controversial because Disney didn't tell Caselotti, the original actress, that they were transitioning to this newer one.
No.
It's really tragic, actually. In the 92 Academy Awards, I think it was, they had Mary Kay Bergman record a line of like the award for best voice dubbing or whatever it was, as Snow White. And that's when Adriana Castellotti heard that, that she heard that and heard that it wasn't her voice and it wasn't something she had read. That's how she found out that she wasn't doing Snow White anymore. So it's kind of tragic.
Oh,
Mary Kay Bergman did not like how Disney handled that. Refused to admit that she was doing Snow White while Castellotti was still alive. So super, super tragic. But yeah, Mary Kay Bergman went on to be a legendary voice actress herself, including she was Mrs. Butterworth, and she originated all of the female South Park characters.
okay.
It's sadly Mary Kay Bergman took her life. Actually, only a couple years after South Park started.
Voice. Oh, that's
Wendy, all the moms, the bus driver, the teacher.
Oh,
Yeah,
awful.
yeah, tragic.
Okay, let's bring this. Let's start bringing this back. ATU story type 709. Would you like to guess the name of ATU type story? ATU story type 709.
Does it have to do with blood and snow?
No, it's just Snow White.
Oh,
Yeah. It's there's enough variants of this that they just we haven't been talking about the ATU story types that much as lately, but
yeah, they're useful sometimes.
that's all right. Do you have any other notes? I've got left is my pitch.
Oh, you have a pitch? Good.
No, I do.
I don't know how you pulled a pitch out of this one because it's been done so many times, but I'd love to hear it.
Okay. It is by just adapting a kind of a wacky one that I found. But so I think I'd adapt 2 or 3 Greek ones and an Albanian one that I kind of slopped all together.
All right.
A young girl is tricked by her governess into killing her real mom, so the governess can take the moms, please.
Mm.
So already we've got the hand that rocks the cradle vibe.
Right, and there's that inherent guilt.
Yeah.
I'm sure she gets ghosted so that she doesn't know that it was really the governess's fault.
The plan works for the
Yeah.
governess, and she eventually gets a magic crown on Dad that kind of hypnotizes him, and eventually she chases the girl out of the house on the threat of death. Like I said, Dad, meanwhile, has been placed under a spell and being controlled by this crown. So Snow White leaves, goes into the woods, finds a magic stone arch, which is a portal to a different part of the world, different island, if you want, on Greece. This island's full of giants and monsters. She makes her way to a castle, and the castle is inhabited by a family of dragons. So you got a mom and a dad and a daughter, and they adopt the poor human in a real Stuart Little kind of way. And Snow White becomes best friends with her new sister dragon.
Oh, nice.
Time passes. Queen back at home hosts a party which is attended by a bunch of Greek gods, including Helios, the sun god, who just casually, without, apropos of nothing, say, "Oh, I saw your kid the other day, by the way." She's off down at Dragon Castle. And the queen's like, she's super angry, right? She's like, "This won't do. This will not do. This will not stand, man." So she decides, you know what? I had intended her to die, and so she will. So she sends the army, so her husband's army, to go destroy the land of monsters. Kill them all. And now, by this point, like I said, years has passed. Snow White's been hanging out at her school. There's monsters there, one of whom she quite fancies, and they start dating. They fall in love. But here comes Mom's army, and there's this big battle. The monsters win. The evil queen dies, and in the battle, the dad's crown gets knocked off. So he realizes, what am I doing? No, so the father comes back to normal. Queen's dead, and Snow White has a little half human, half monster, but 100% cute baby. And they all live happily ever after.
Oh,
And then we do a whole series about the half human, half monster baby.
ooh, I like that. It's more exciting than Sleepy, Sneezy, and Doc.
Oh my God, yeah, I think so. Anyways, that's all I have. Do you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
Well, if there is nothing left to say about Snow White, I'm sure that there's millions of stuff that has already been said, but I think we can call it. Before we do that, however, Mike, is there a way for anyone to contact us if they have thoughts they wish to share?
Absolutely. We can be reached at brothersdimpodcast@gmail.com. We are on Blue Sky at brothersdim and on X at brothersdimpod.
Very good. Well, thanks to all of our fans for listening. This has been story number 53, Little Snow White. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Sleep tight, and we will see you next time.
See you next time.